Welcome, everybody, to Authentic Conversations, the podcast where we dive deep into real stories, the real people, and the real experiences that shape our lives and communities. I'm Deanna Brown. I'm your host today, and I invite you into the space of curiosity, vulnerability, and everyday heroes. From CEOs to entrepreneurs to advocates to neighbors and those who face adversity with courage, we're going to get into the stories. Let's welcome Kyle Harris, CEO of BrainLit. Kyle, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself from a professional capacity, and we'll explore that for a bit.
Sure. Currently I'm the CEO of BrainLit, which is a Swedish-based company around prop tech, health tech. We do something called biocentric lighting, which is modulating color, intensity, and spectrum of light for health, wellness, and recovery. Company was founded by one of the original creators of Bluetooth, and we take interior spaces, design them with healthy light, have the privilege of working across professional sports, which is kind of fun. But then on the flip side, we do hospitals, schools, and commercial real estate so that any person that is working under biocentric light has better health and overall recovery, immune system, things like that. My background was an IBM kid, grew up all over the world, Korea, Japan, kind of ended up going to kindergarten with the same people I graduated from high school and everything else in between. Um, Worked for the Navy for a while, sold F-18s internationally. So that was kind of fun when I had my first job. Came to New York, did international marketing for the New York Mercantile Exchange. So I got into the oil and gas business. Um, Again, kind of working all over the world. And then went back to Thunderbird, got an MBA, and started my own incubator concept right around the same day kind of launch when Idea Lab launched with $1 billion fund. We did not have $1 billion. Um, but spent a lot of time in the early, internet days, startups trying to bring together accounting, strategy, marketing into tech. And then my career kind of unfolded where I just kind of kept going to early stage companies, helping founders and investors evaluate their positions, grow, retrench, things like that. And it just kept moving through a lot of different technologies and ended up with BrainLit about 5 years ago through two guys that were investors in the company and started running the US business and then became CEO of the global business about 3 years ago.
Fantastic. In that body of work, which I think is fascinating, there's a couple of themes that I can sort of pick out. One is technology, of course, and sort of being advanced. One is sort of bridging different groups, scientists, sports, investors, founders, and then perhaps the idea of everything being very global. You personally, as well as much of your work. Is there a defining moment?
I think that, going back to being a kid, probably the most defining moment was when my dad got the job to move to Korea. I was going into seventh grade, right? So I thought up to that point I was going to be a pediatrician. And then all of a sudden we moved overseas and kind of my view of the world changed. And just kind of out of luck, my first job with the Navy happened to be with a guy that had been living in the Korea at the same time that I was there. He was older. That's how I got the job. And then the New York Mercantile job came from a friend from Japan. So my career's kind of just started getting or became international, not particularly by design, but more of once I started doing it, then it became kind of a natural evolution for me to be very comfortable internationally because I'd been doing it since a pretty young kid. So I think that's probably that was the big shift from what I would have done had I stayed in the US. I think, I don't know if I was ever going to become a doctor, but once I got onto the international kind of turn, and every place I've gone to has been a brand new technology. So I've done airplanes to oil to incubator across a bunch of different tech to software as a service and insurance. So I've always gone into companies that I really didn't know much about with a very finance and sales driven construct, but then, trying to help grow and bring innovation and new tech to the market.
It's interesting because there's clearly a passion here throughout that sort of diverse set of environments, let alone, categories or sectors. Why does the work matter to you? I mean,
Oh, I mean, as I've gone through the different companies and been brought in by ownership groups or owners to look at their businesses, the learning a new business is always fun, right? So you're always challenged by what don't you know? How do you take the finance or the marketing or the sales theories and apply it to a totally new environment? So that's always fun, the constant learning. And but then as you get older, your network starts to grow. The diversity of the people you know makes the ease of learning something new and apply it to sales and marketing smoother. So what I like is just the going into new environments. And the way it was always been structured is that if I did my job correctly, I put myself out of the role because we either replaced me or something else. So it kind of just kept turning. So when I look at where the enjoyment is, it's a lot of it is in this the challenge of learning something, learning building a new network, learning a new culture, working with, I've worked with German companies. I'm now working with a Swedish company. So it's always been some kind of both the culture and the culture of the new tech, which has always been fun.
Mhm. Have there been moments that have truly challenged you in terms of like working internationally in that context, or even facing adversity based on diversity of culture, mindset? You know, are there things that stand out in your mind as being sort of rough moments, or defining moments from a learning perspective, other than just acquisition of knowledge?
Think so. I mean, I think I was having started traveling so extensively fairly young. It was always kind of normal, right? So it wasn't like, oh, I've never done this before. And so that really didn't.
Hmm.
And having lived in Korea and Japan, which are, very different than the kind of the European countries that I've been working in for the last number of years. I think I just had a fairly broad, easily understood picture of the world, which is kind of unique. So no, I can't say that was ever a challenge. I think
Hmm.
understanding the different cultural ways that teams work or that local organizations make decisions, and even how the governments or uh, the rules are defined in each country for how businesses operate has kind of been challenging because it's not all the same U.S. capital mindset. Uh, but I can't say it's been challenging. That's always been kind of that's the fun part about
Hmm.
it, is going to figure out that stuff and try not to make too many mistakes along the road.
Okay. Yeah, it does sound like challenges for you are what gets you excited. You know, if you approach something and it seems commonplace and it seems you've done this before, it's probably not as exciting as if you're facing a whole new culture, a whole new problem set, a whole new, you know, piece of tech or what have you. How would you define yourself as an executive or as a leader culturally, or even in general across the variety of businesses?
I want to believe that I try to empower my team, but I probably micromanage them more than I should. But a lot of that has been, most of the organizations that I've been have been very small, so there weren't many people to rely on. So as the organizations grow, I just have to remember to let the experts be
Hmm.
experts and the professionals do their job, and I don't need to necessarily be holding as tightly when there's not too many people doing the work. But yeah, I think that's probably it. I mean, I like as you mature, you realize that you don't have to do everything and you don't have to take credit for it all. So I think over time, it's more
Yeah.
letting everyone get their wins.
Have there ever been moments where you felt challenged, either confidence or you doubted yourself, or there are any points where you were uncomfortable?
It depends on what's the next meeting, who's the next customer, what's the next capital shortfall. It everything in early stage, startup environments is high stress, high risk, high reward, but at the same time, it's always kind of right on the teetering edge of either falling forward or backward. Um, so yeah, that's probably it more than anything else.
Yeah. How do in that kind of an environment where you're chasing a bit, there's a lot going on, um, how do you keep yourself grounded? How do you keep yourself healthy from a mental perspective?
Is constant stress unhealthy? I mean, if you're excited about what you do, and I kind of feel like I'm an internal optimist, so I wake up every morning's kind of a fresh Groundhog's Day. Let's go see what we can kill today. And so stress is, you know, I think stress is more in not being able to achieve the opportunity or the goal fast enough, or wishing we could do more because there's limitations in capital or development cycles. It's not a frustration of stress that I'm not even failing. It's just can't do enough fast enough. And so it's an optimistic frustration and a stress. How do I keep grounded? Kind of find my grounding in that. Because if I didn't, then I would make myself crazy.
When you're talking about the people you work with, either you're hiring or you're retaining, you're building teams, what are a couple of words that describe what you're looking for regardless of sector? How do you think about the people on the team that sort of empower you and allow you to do what you need to get done?
I guess flexible. I think in the types of size companies that I've always dealt with, if you have someone that's too narrow in what they're willing to do or understand that they should be doing, you know, they can really bog down where it needs to be much more rowing together, helping others, chief bottle washer, sweeping the floor, but at the same time doing your whatever your title might be, but also watching out for the broader organization not being very nice. So I guess flexible and aggressive and aggressively flexible. How about that?
Okay, that's good. Um, let's talk about tech for a few minutes, and then we'll talk about sports for a few minutes. The two things that are probably at the heart and soul of your current venture. Technology, question mark. How would you finish that sentence? Technology and the technology you're working with, how would you sort of describe it in the continuum of, new things?
I mean, we're in my particular job right now, BrainLit, we're very focused on light, right? And all of the conversations about the power of light in whether it's natural or in
Mm-hmm.
interior lighting and what it should be doing for you, what it is actually doing to you. Uh, so for me, all things technology kind of revolve around light.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into all the really other extensions of how
Yeah.
light can be engaged and manipulated. There's so many biosensors in the market, and there's so much data that people are collecting about themselves that then almost need a home to be given. One, now that I know this, how do I resolve it? And we do is building a pathway to take making light connected to all
Mm-hmm.
the stuff you can't get to. If you're not able to take that 30-minute to an hour walk into the sunlight every day because you go to work in the dark and come home in the dark, how do we make environments that make you healthy? So technology for me is really light
Mm-hmm.
heavy, people centered, biocentric. That's the name of our platform. But how do you really bring the human into a space that allows them to thrive, whatever their role is, player, coach, staff, school teacher, student, patient, whatever.
What's the most misunderstood part of light? Like, what would surprise me?
I think people just don't understand the power of it. And in all honesty, they think it's just visual, and there's so much more underlying
Hmm.
biological triggers that light does to you throughout the course of the day. The rising color, the intensity, and the setting sun changes how you're energized and focused, how you sleep and recover. And then probably what people don't realize is how suppress their biology is by the offices or how their light is designed. If you have very warm brown colors all day
Hmm.
long, you're not getting the energy and focus that you should be getting. If you have too much blue light and bright into the night, then you're suppressing your sleep and recovery. And people tend to gravitate to warm, comfortable colors, but that's not where you
Hmm.
need to be all day long. So if you don't know kind of the continuum of how light should be designed, and then are able to readily do that, then you're kind of always pushing your body out of sync. And I think, and it's hard because light is viewed as something you see. You flip a
Interesting.
switch on, it lights the room, and it was there so you could read and work and not trip over the furniture. With what we do, we're
Yeah.
layering a whole nother set of attributes into the lighting to make it healthy or make your body respond to it properly or like it would if we were still, you know, caveman and cavewomen coming out at sunrise to go hunt and gather. And we don't do that anymore. So that's
Yeah.
probably what people don't understand the most is even when they do understand it, it's still very hard to get to. If you're at
Yeah.
work, I mean, I have a great view in windows, but my
Yeah.
windows point the wrong direction most of the
Right.
day. So it's pretty, but it's not healthy.
Hmm. Yeah. Which makes sports, obviously, performance in particular. We talk about performance at work. We're talking about now performance on the courts, on the fields. It seems like a very obvious business opportunity. Was that the first business that BrainLit went into, or were there other sectors that the idea of bringing
Yeah,
optimal
the
light
European
to?
business was not sports heavy at all, and that's where it started in 2012. So a lot more commercial
Okay,
real estate, schools, hospitals, because a little bit of the understanding of light, because in the Nordics you don't have a lot of it.
okay,
It's really probably more easily deployed. When I
sure.
started working for the U.S. business 5 years ago, we really didn't have any customers. I mean, it was kind of we were bringing over tech. We weren't being given credit for the hospitals and commercial stuff we had in Europe because they
Hmm.
weren't recognized names. And so we shotgunned the start as to where should we go and where will the water run.
Yeah.
And sports was where it went. And then what we learned from
Hmm.
sports very quickly is it created a very high endorsement of the performance attributes of what we were talking about, and then it helped create a kind of a confidence level. So,
Hmm.
um, I wish
Yeah.
I could say I specifically knew sports was going to be our, lighthouse in the U.S., and it just turned out to be that. And we still have, schools and hospitals and all the other stuff, but it's sports. It's clearly
Hmm.
it's kind of the fun one. I mean, it's amazing to have the organizations that we have in tow, but also it
Yeah.
helps a lot in the broader market understanding of that if you're looking for trying to incrementally improve on the top 1/10 of 1% of the population, and we can do that. What can you do with the everyday person in an office?
Yeah. Right. Is there any stories around working in sports that are both notable in a good way or challenging?
And I think sports is perceived to have infinite amounts of money because they pay well. The organizations are not necessarily as
Hmm. Yeah.
cash, heavy as one might believe. And it's really hard to sell in sports because it's very seasonal. 8 to 9 months out of the year, the operators are heads down doing their day jobs,
Hmm.
and then they get time off in the off season, and they try to jam all of the changes and renovation or adoption of new technology or processes in the off season, which is a very small window. So I think the thing you have to understand about selling into sports is it can take 2 to 3 seasons to sell something, unless it's just a small, very single line item budget offer. Um, so that's hard.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a who's going first. You know, um, I was actually surprised by the level of well, we asked around, nobody else was doing it, so we don't want to. Don't you want to take advantage of this? Yeah, well, we'll let somebody else jump. And then once the first person jumped, then you started to
Yeah.
see the uptick. But that surprised me. I mean,
Yeah.
especially since it's something that you're guaranteed to buy. You absolutely are going to have lighting in your facility. And
Hmm.
why not take advantage of leveraging a single threaded opportunity, which is light for sight, and make it light for performance as well, and get it in the same slot in the ceiling?
Yeah. Fantastic. I'm just gonna, end this little tech piece and ask the question about AI, which seems to be the of the moment technology or discussion. Um, do you believe that AI is overinflated, overstated, hyped, what have you? Is it a bubble? I mean, or do you feel like it's really starting to gain traction and in fact will change our
It's
worlds
definitely going to have a
pretty
huge
dramatically?
impact. I think it's unclear if everyone actually realizes where and how. Um, we're very hardware driven. We are getting to the
Hmm.
edges of large data sets that AI will be helpful in to how to make sure that the environments are more responsive to the individual. So instead of looking at a room full of people, how do you deliver for the individual in the room around light and their, personal needs? So yeah, we think that's going to have a lot of power that we probably could not have done some of the calculations and analysis in a very flip the switch and be
Hmm.
delivered something that's good for you as the light turns on. Um, and in the broader market, I mean, if you look at sports in general, the teams start collecting so much data now. I mean, so much that they don't even really engage in much of it because they just can't
Yeah.
get through it. And I believe those systems will really help them consume, define, and react to. Um, so you just think about how much personal data you collect off of a biosensor, you're probably wearing two, if not three of them. Depending on how you look at your phone and your, ring, watch,
Yeah. Oh,
whatever.
yes.
All those things come into play with a lot of individual stuff to analyze. So I think that's where AI can be very
Yeah. What let's talk about the future, whatever that entails, weeks, months, years. What's a goal or aspiration you're excited about next? I mean, you're so accomplished, you've done so many different things and really stood out as being a leader in a true sense of every definition. What's the next
I
goal?
mean, my next goal is always where, where I've anchored my time and where I'm spending right now, which is BrainLit. So I'm really, really excited. Our exit
Mhm.
velocity is just about there. The awareness in what we do is about to take off. We've always been well in front of the rising wave, but now we're kind of getting up on top of it, and that's really exciting. So if you look at, work, which, is where I find my grounding because I love what I do. um, that's the cool stuff, is just getting it to where the skeptics or the people that had never heard of us now are like, oh, calling to say, well, we heard about you and wish we had done it years ago, and now let's go do it. More of that. And then pushing that into schools and hospitals and other places outside of sports to where everyone gets the benefit of what we do. Um, that's kind of where I would go with that kind of angle. Yeah, so that's probably, and then there's family and kids, and so all that stuff is the other amazing part of it as well. But it still comes back to you spend a lot of hours at work.
What's the one question that you wish people would ask you more? Like, I'm one of these people that's the host that's going to ask you, what question didn't I ask you that you thought was interesting?
How do I invest in your company?
That's a good one. I'll take that one. Having raised capital a few times. In a more sincere front, what's the one thing you're super proud of but really rarely get a chance to talk about?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty proud of my family. I mean, that's the stuff that if you look at kind of want to believe all the work you put in and where they
There
go
you
to
go.
college and how they graduate and do they get employed. And so, yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
probably where I would find a lot of satisfaction and uh, wins.
Yeah. You talked a lot about work. Let's just get one more point on the personal front. How do you recharge? What is your favorite pastime? Do you have hobbies? Are you a golfer?
I live in New York City, so I play golf a
Yep.
couple times a year. I like it, but it's hard. Um, I cook a lot.
Okay.
I make
Yep.
really fancy cakes and birthday stuff, so anytime somebody needs a 6-tier wedding
Okay.
type of cake, I'm the guy. So
There you
I
go.
spend a lot of time doing that, and spend a lot of time cooking. So I like entertaining people and,
Wow.
working and serving and stuff. So that's probably where I spend most of my time.
There you go. Jets or Mets? Giants or Giants or Yankees?
I've got my football team is the Buccaneers. My college football team is Auburn. Uh, I don't really have I have to be careful. I can't say I don't have teams because then
Yeah.
I hard can't get customers. I have come to appreciate a lot of different teams once I've learned about their organizations from the inside working with them. So I think it's more of uh, the organizations than actually the players on the court. So
Sure. What's one piece of advice you'd give to a young entrepreneur who's
don't.
aspiring to be the next Kyle Harris?
Um, they say, find a job you love and then it makes it easier. Yeah, that's cute. If you're an entrepreneur, you've already made a pretty big choice. So you're already on the path. Talk to as many people as you can. I Here's probably what it is. As an entrepreneur, remember to offer people help. Because if you're an entrepreneur, you're always asking for stuff, money, advice, pilots.
Hmm.
You're constantly needing because you don't have a lot. Remember to give back. Always understand how the people hear what you're asking from their context to try to help them make a good decision, help their organization, right? So don't only just be taking, turn it to more of a giving construct than anything else.
Fantastic. Well, Kyle, thank you for your time today. Thank you for your honesty, your direct thoughts. Thank you for bringing the light to sports. I feel like that's definitely one of those career-defining moves. I'm excited for those players who have that opportunity, and I hope that we get the light more into those classrooms and hospitals and places like that as well. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, audience, for listening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Thanks, Kyle. Take care. Bye.